So Polly, can you quickly explain how you record the smolt data?
Yeah, sure. So basically we have these smolt data sheets which we use whenever we're processing our smolt catch, and we put the date in, the description, so whether it's a smolt, a pre-smolt or a par, its length, and then for every 10th one we have to scale it, so we would circle yes for every 10th one. We also mark whether it's a die mark, so in this case today it's no for all of them, but sometimes there'll be yeses in there because we do 200 for every catch. And then in the notes, because we have two traps, a 6 foot and a 4 foot, we mark which trap it's caught in, so that then at the end we can get a differential between the 4 foot trap and the 6 foot trap.
Okay.
And then yeah, we have all our scale packets that we label with the name of the place, that's the Avon or Anne rotary screw trap, and the date, and then the number of the scale packet.
What's your procedure for die marking, Polly? How often do you die mark?
So we die mark at least twice a week, usually sort of Monday and then either Wednesday or Thursday. Sometimes if we think there's going to be a lot of rain, then we'll maybe change the day so that we can try and get a day when we're going to have a lot of smolts coming down the next day, so we can get a better estimate of our recapture rate.
Okay.
But usually it's sort of Monday and Wednesday that we die mark.
Okay, so you're specifically trying to assess your recapture rate in high flows as well as low flows? Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
Just because of, well, sometimes if the water is higher, then the efficiency might be lower because there's more sort of surface areas, if you imagine the river as a cross section, that smolts can get through without passing the smolt trap. So it's just important in high waters that we can see how many we're catching in comparison to lower waters.
Okay.
So here we're marking 200 a day. We take 100 from each trap and we release them 1.2 kilometres back upstream. And then in the following days we're recording how many we recapture. Recently we've had a recapture rate of between 15 and 18%, very consistent.
Collected the fish from the trap in this bucket here. We have a setup already with anaesthetic MS222 in that bucket, so obviously we're putting the fish into the anaesthetic and we're measuring every fish, and we're obviously looking for the die mark recaptures, and we're scaling every 10th one so that we can get an age class of the fish coming out of the river arm system.
Okay.
So, and Polly here obviously is just telling me when to take the scale and recording all the lengths and any die mark recaptures that we happen to come across. Okay, 137, 126, 112, 123. As you can see, this one here was one of the fish that we die marked in the petrel position between the petrel fins and was re-released yesterday. One of the 200 that was re-released upstream. Okay. So this would be our 6th recapture now for today.
So here Steve's showing us the technique for die marking, where he's dabbing the die on and just ever so slightly breaking the edge of the skin without puncturing. And this is kind of like using a needle to remove a splinter from your finger, for example. He's now just washing it in water to check that it's stayed on. So what type of fish is this, Steve?
This is what I class as a pre-smolt. As you can clearly see, quite obviously it's still got the par marks. They haven't, it hasn't silvered up right up yet. This is a sea trout smolt. You can see it's turning sort of quite silvery, goldenly silvery now. It's about 183 length, and as you see, quite typical is the black tip here on the tail as they smolt. So it's a lovely example of a sea trout smolt, that.
And do you see any difference in the run timing or the run characteristics of trout?
Well, the trout tend to be just slightly later. Normally, as we found in previous trapping, is the trout come a little bit later, and once you start getting more and more trout, it's a good sign that the salmon smolt run is finished, and it's just the trout that are coming out now. Okay, scaling 128.
Steve, I see you taking scale samples there. What different ages do you find in the Anne catchment?
Well, from the Anne catchment, I don't think we'll get any 1-year-olds, but it is a possibility. The majority, obviously, will be 2, 3s with some 4s. I would expect them. I've got a feeling the majority will be 3s, but until I read the scales, I can't be certain of that.
So you can see this fish here has got some lines across it and some scale loss. They're almost like parallel lines. I think if you look closely you can see a series of parallel lines there. On the other side we can also see a score here. There's parallel scores, and to me that's a classic heron damage. It's the ridges on the beak of the heron. So this fish has been grabbed by a heron and damaged, but it's wriggled and got away. You see this one here has got a bit of scale damage towards its tail, actually on both sides of the fish. I can't see any real evidence of bird beak marks on there, and a heron mark is quite distinctive with ridges on it. So this fish may actually have suffered some trap damage. The tail of it may have been caught between two moving parts in the trap, for example. But this is one of the few we've had today, and we don't see many like this. But that could be an example of trap damage. I don't think there's any evidence to say that's a bird.
Okay. In your years smolt monitoring, Brian, have you come across many other species in the smolt trap?
Well, this is the second eel we've had. It's 32 centimetres long, roughly, and a couple minnows. That's it.
Okay. After fish processing, all the fish are released back to the river unharmed. Just before we finish, the Spey Foundation have kindly provided us with some example data sets for the purposes of this training video. So here you see the current River Anne data set with date on the x-axis and catches on the y-axis. On the far right you'll see today's catch of just over 800 fish. Here's the same data set split into the 4-foot and the 6-foot trap. You'll see slightly higher catches in the 6-foot trap. And then here, from a different site in a previous year, is an example of recording river flow in the context of smolt monitoring. And finally here is river temperature with the same data set. Finally, thanks again to the Spey Foundation, and in particular Brian, Steve and Polly for all their help, which is greatly appreciated.